burlesque show with girls in nipple tassels and a flying trapeze. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to disappoint you. You should have read your program more carefully. If you came expecting liturgical dancing with new interpretations of the story of Moses, sorry, but I think you will be disappointed. You've made an error during the booking process. But if you can't see me, I'm really happy that you achieved your intention. 'Cause it's all very well to live in the moment, but planning is important if you want to achieve your goals. And maybe have some savings when you're old. I am so fucking rock. I am so goddamn rock. I am so motherfucking rock. I work very hard for my rock and roll hair. I get it chemically straightened and I style it for hours. I work very hard for a rock and roll face. I've got the kooky contact lenses and the curly mascara, but there is something deeper inside, something that this mask I wear won't hide. I paid lots of money for this big piano and the fancy lights to make me look like Michael Jackson. I paid lots of money for this bohemian coat, and the fact I don't wear shoes is just an affectation. But there is something deeper inside, something that this costume cannot hide, something from a distance you won't see, something fundamentally me. I am so rock, I am so motherfucker. Fucking rock, fucking goddamn rock, goddamn fucking rock, motherfucking rock, motherfucker. Hit me rocking on the piano, let's it go. So motherfucking rock, don't you know you wanna rock it with me, rock it with me, rock it with me. All the ladies in the house, come on and let me hear you say, ayo. Yeah, we can rock. All the fellas in the house, come on and let me hear you say, whoop. Whoop. All the ladies in the house, come on and let me hear you say, I'm not good with maps, but I have a highly developed emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. Sorry. All the... This is a love song. Your love for me is not debatable. Your sexual appetite's insatiable. You never ever make me waitable. Delectable, inflatable you. You don't have problems with your weight at all. You never steal food off my plate at all. I never have to masturbate at all. Unstoppable, inflatable you. You never seem to menstruate at all. So you're not angry when I'm late at all. I feel permanently fellatable, unpoppable, inflatable you. With you in my arms, I feel we could just fly away. With the right kind of gas, I might even try it someday. In this ocean of life, I'm never afraid I might drown. We could just float forever, whatever the weather, whenever my inflatable love is around. Your thighs and buttocks are so holdable. You always do just what you're toldable. And if we argue, you just foldable. Controllable, consolable you. My mates all reckon you are suitable. I took you round to watch the football. And Stephen Gary said you're rootable. Refutable, commutable you. You're never sensitive or tickly. When I rub you, my skin goes prickly. It's known as static electricity. Felicity when I'm kissing you. Your skin is so smooth, I couldn't afford you with hair. You have all the holes real girls have got, +1 for the air. Your problems are simple, I don't need my master's in psych to know if you get down. I just perk you right up with a couple of squirts with the pump off my bike. You never wake up when I snore at all, a trait which I find quite adorable. You have a box and you are storable, ignorable, backdoorable you. Any sexual position's feasible, although you don't bend at the knees at all. Your hooches are so firm and squeezable, increasable, uncreasable you. You don't complain about my hairy back, or about the inches that downstairs I lack. You're not disgusted by my furry crack. Burt Bacharach, Jack Kerouac, ooh. Now birth control is not an issue, no, I clean it all off with it. I bet my jealous friends all wish you were insatiably, inflatably theirs. Yeah, piano solo in me. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello. Hi. What's your name? How y'all doing? Good. Oh, thank you. What a relief. I thought for a second that you hadn't elected a leader. Anarchy. I'm fine, thank you. What's your name, leader? Abby. Ah. Like a little church. Generous like a church. Thanks for asking. I'm fine. Good. I'm Tim, for those of you who just sort of popped down taking a punt on a small newspaper advertisement or something. I'll just give you a bit of background. I'm a person. I grew up, born and bred in Perth, Western Australia. Thank you. I did next to nothing to earn that privilege, but thanks anyway. I now live in London, in the United Kingdom, which is great. Perth. As you guys from Perth? Yeah, oh, right. Well, as you know, it's quite a quiet place. Those of you who visit, it's quite a small place. London's very busy. It's got a real sense of excitement. I love Perth, but London's got this sort of sense of urban danger, which is very seductive. You know, where I live in the north, like, for example, an ambulance seems to go past my house with its sirens blaring, like once every 3 minutes. There seems to be a statistically improbable number of North Londoners requiring urgent medical attention at any given time, and you can't help but feel excited because odds are you can't help but feel one of these days one of those ambulances is going to come for you. And it's different over there. Even the ambulances, for example, every time they go past my house, I notice they have the writing's green, for one. That's weird. And it says on the side in big letters, emergency ambulance. It's just like, surely the adjective is kind of implied by the noun. But then I figured it was probably just to distinguish them from our ones over here. They're just normal ambulances, you know, a little bit more laid back. They don't really emerge. They just kind of ambulate. Hang out in parks. Like massively over-equipped Mr. Whippy vans. Everything's more complicated. They're taxis. You know, in Australia, you just have taxis. You just ring one and you get in it and you go somewhere. They've got all different types of taxis. The main one, of course, the famous black cab, you know, the English cab, and they're, you know, proper, and they've got proper English cabbies. And then there's got this whole other set of taxis called mini cabs. You guys heard of mini cabs? You've been to London a bit? And, well, they just look like normal cars, but they have a special sticker and the driver has a special licence and he's allowed to act as a taxi. And then there's this whole other group of public transport vehicles that I hadn't heard about when I moved there, and they're called illegal minicabs. And they're just dudes in cars, and they're only cab drivers in the same sense that my mate Pete is a pharmacist. And as the name suggests, they are illegal. And they're a bit of a sort of scary thing in London. I'd never heard of them. But when I first got there, I was staying near Old Street Station, which is on the northern, those Londoners, you know Old Street. I was staying on New North Road, just near Old Street. And I was walking down New North Road when I first got there, towards Old Street. And I came across a bus stop with a bus stop advertisement, you know, sort of 6 foot high. And it said, if you want to know how much an illegal minicab could cost you. You seen these? Ask a rape victim. That's how I felt shocked. I was like, well, look, I get the point you're trying to get across. I mean, it's very important, but in the middle of the street, a child could read. I just thought that's not necessary, that sort of thing. But I sure learnt my lesson. Because a couple of nights later, after I saw this sign, I was in Soho having a drink with some friends. And I went to the bar and I met a girl, you understand, what are you getting, that sort of meeting. And I got talking to this girl. She's a really great girl. We got chatting and we talked all night, but we got pretty drunk. And eventually it got sort of heavy, the conversation, and she disclosed to me that she'd been the victim of a sexual assault. So I asked her how much an illegal minicab would cost from Soho to New North Road near Old Street. where I was staying. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, about £8.50. I mean, it was closer to 9, but I'm surprised the system works at all. But apart from the sort of ambulances and the dangerous public transport, London is great. It's definitely the place for me because, to be honest, I'm trying to get famous, and you know, celebrities belong in London. I think it's a great place for them to bring up the kids they've bought off poor people who live in less great places. And I'm not doing great, but I have met some famous people. I've got to tell you about this gig because it was really exciting. I did a charity gig and I had to go on stage after Mariah Carey. I came on straight after her and played Inflatable You. It wasn't deliberate, but it sure resonated with a poignancy that it hadn't before. But I was really nervous, as you can imagine. I mean, I was standing backstage watching this woman, one of the greatest pop voices of all time, just tearing it to shreds on stage in this tiny little dress going, and I was just thinking, well, how can I go on after that? You know, that's amazing. And this backstage dude came up to me and said, she's lip syncing. Oh, I thought, what a jip, you know. Suddenly the magic that is Mariah Carey kind of disappeared, and it felt like I was watching a sort of cheap drag show, but without the intrigue of transvesticism. To my knowledge. And also I thought, sure, Mariah, you're a professional, you have your reasons. Lip sync if you want to, but if you're going to lip sync, why would you do a Mariah Carey song? This is a song about the music industry trying to get famous and having no depth. He doesn't have a problem with drugs, he just doesn't do them. He's fine that his mates have tattoos, but he reckons they'll rue them. He likes going to pubs, but he hates it when the music's too loud. He tends not to go to rock concerts cause he can't stand the crowds. But all he's ever wanted to be is a rock star on Rage or MTV. But he knows that it's not fucking likely. He just turned 30. He knows that he will always be a rock and roll nerd. He'll keep writing songs the world will never hear, and though they won't be heard, he'll just keep writing. Oh yeah, but you see the problem is he always dreamt of being a star, but he learned piano instead of guitar, which in the 90s didn't get you very far. So while the other kids were learning Stairway, he was the piano to their forte. But he was convinced one day he'd rock their fucking asses and be an icon for the disenfranchised masses, and grow his hair long and rebel against the state. But just for now that'd have to wait, cause he's running late for his morning classes, and he will always be a rock and roll nerd. He'll keep playing gigs that no one knows about, and though it sounds absurd, he'll just keep playing. Oh yeah, but you see the problem is there's not much depth in what he's singing. He's a victim of his upper middle class upbringing, so he can't write about the hood or bling bling. So he sits and imagines his girlfriend is dead to try and evoke some angst in his middle class head. But the bitch is always fine at 9:30 when they go to bed. And he's not spent a single night in prison. He has no issues with nutrition. He has no drinking problem and no drug addiction, unless you count the drugs they put in chicken. And marijuana always tends to make him cough. He doesn't look good with his t-shirt off, and when he tries to act tough, you can tell he's tricking now. While his mates will go out late, popping pills and having fun, he goes home and showers and gets a good 8 hours. He gets his thrills from his morning run. While his mates will go on dates, taking speed and drinking cans of Jim Beam, he stays home and cooks, curls up with a book with a girl he's had since he was 17. Cause he's never really been part of the scene. While the other kids like Gunners, he like Queen. He's more into Beatles than the Stones. He's more Stevie Wonder than Ramones. And he's never owned a panel van. He never shot a Pantera fan. He doesn't know the difference between metal and thrash. He couldn't tell you nothing about Axl and Slash. He likes Ben Folds and the Jackson 5. He knows all the words to Staying Alive. And though he wants to be all grungy and cool, he spent 11 years at a private school. So it don't matter how he tries, he cannot hide behind his rock and roll lies. Cause you've either got it or you don't. Yeah, you'll either rock it or you won't. Yeah, you've either got it or you don't. Yeah, you'll either rock it or you won't. He knows that his music lacks depth, but it just can't be helped. He has nothing interesting to say, so he writes about himself. But he doesn't want to seem self-obsessed, so he writes in third person. In an attempt to seem more rock and roll, but he suspects it's not working. And deep in his heart he knows he will never be Bono or Bowie. And even if he was quite pretty, with small pants like Kylie, he knows that he will always be a rock and roll nerd. He'll keep writing songs the world don't care about, and though it sounds absurd, he'll just keep writing. Oh yeah, 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 you can criticize him, but he won't care, cause he wants to rock, and he will never be deterred. But he'll always be a fucked up little try-hard wannabe rock and roll nerd. A rock and roll nerd. Hi, thanks. I have a problem with stockbrokers. Is there any stockbrokers in the audience? I don't want to upset anyone. It's not. I don't have a problem with the job you do. I'm not even entirely sure what it is. But my problem is a grammatical issue. Because broke is the past tense of break. So strictly, I don't think you can have a broker. Like, I don't call myself a singer. This is a song about the conversation I had with a stockbroker in a pub once. It's actually a beat poem. Cool, huh? It's called Mitsubishi Colt. He looks at me intensely, eyes sparkle, contact lens green with artificial envy, cocks his head and fixes me with a condescending stare, flicks his bleached blonde-tipped hair and theorizes thus. You know what I reckon? Pause for effect. Adjusts his tackle as if it's semi-erect. I figure I better give him what I know he expects. What do you reckon?
hand on the shoulder, an avuncular wink, sips his lemon drink, spits out the pips, hands on hips, licks his lips like a wolf near a flock. Yet again adjusting this fantasy cock, he delivers his philosophy. I reckon it don't matter. It don't mean squat what you earn or what you got or the style of your hair or what you wear. It matters not. I mean, what do you care that I live on a hill with views of the beach, that my chicks and my dogs have an ensuite bathroom each, that I've already reached my first 10 million and I'm only 36? You're as thick as 2 bricks if you think you can fix what is broken your life with money. And the funny thing is, and I shit you not, I would give it all up like that. He leaves me to ponder his wisdom for a bit, and with a click of his fingers he beckons the blondest, bimboest barmaid, and grinning ridiculously orders a G&T and a beer for me. And before I can escape he's back saying, "'Cause mate, the thing is, all that crap, it's all superficial, it's all just our front. I mean, anyone can be a rich cunt, but the thing we all want can't be bought with dosh. You know what I mean, boss? 'Cause it's not like you give a toss that when I want to get slim, I've got my own private gym and a personal trainer called Danielle or fucking Darlene. She's got tits like those chicks in Playboy magazine. And it's not like you care that I own a controlling share of an overseas company that builds accounting software. It matters not one bit. I mean, who gives a shit if I earn 600 grand and drive a brand new Land Rover? You know, I'd hand it all over like that. He pauses for a beat long enough for me to retreat to a seat and sit elbow on bar and contemplate this guru with his white teeth and his big car and ponder silently my belief that genius comes in many forms and that this postulating peroxided porn star prick ain't one of them. My speculation cut short as he reforms like Terminator 2, and before I have time to abort, he descends upon me and snorts. I guess what I'm trying to say, in my own little way, is that I reckon musos and artists and that, well, I reckon they're great. I know some people who reckon you guys just sit on your bums and don't get out of bed till the pizza man comes and smoke cones and take crack and whack off all day, but I don't care what they say. And I don't listen to people who say all actors are gay. Not that I don't think that's okay. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, although it's not my bag, if you want to be a fag, you know? I mean, who am I to say where you come and where you go in the privacy of your own homo? Homo. He's shitting me now. And my eyes start to glaze, and through the haze of my anger I notice his G&T is gone, and he's starting to dribble as he dribbles on and fucking on. But you musos are alright. I don't know much about music, but I know what I like, and I reckon I'll give it all in to be like you, Jim. Because you might be poor in monetary terms, but what you earn spiritually, what makes you what you are, just means so much more than what you'll get from a really nice car, or a tennis court, or holidays in Greece, or a house on the beach, or stock market shares, or 31 pairs of Calvin Klein underwear. Do you understand? You are a wealthy man, and mate, I don't want to piss in your pocket, but I gotta say, before I get on my way, that honestly, and I'm not having you on, I reckon one day you could play piano as good as Elton John. The cops are still mingling, though the crowd shuffled out. I've got ice on my hand, where my fist met his mouth. And although I explained that it wasn't my fault, I have an $800 fine for aggravated assault. So before it gets worse, I reckon I'll bolt. A wealthy man in a 1981 Mitsubishi Colt. Hi. Everyone relaxed? So, I've got this little personal confession. I've been going to see a psychologist recently. No, I know. Well, I know. It's weird because obviously on stage I look like totally well-adjusted, and so it comes as a surprise. But I've been speaking to this site. It's not a big deal. Just talking about stuff, few little things that I think could probably just make my life a bit easier. And one of the issues I have is with anger. So I don't get angry. So the issue is not really an anger issue. It's that I don't know how to express anger, which is nice. It's nice to be diplomatic and stuff, but it comes from a fear of confrontation, I think. So I've been talking to this because I worry about what's happening to all that anger, that latent anger that I'm not expressing. So anyway, he reckons what I should do is write my feelings down, thereby expressing myself without having to confront anyone, so that I don't bottle it up. And so I've been doing that. I've been doing some writing, and I've written a poem, which is really helpful to write. I think it might be even more helpful to sort of do in front of a sympathetic, non-judgmental kind of neutral crowd like you guys. So this is my poem. It's called, I've given it a title. It's called Angry, or in brackets, Feet. Bit nervous because it's like a bit more personal. Sometimes I get a bit angry, but you couldn't tell. No, you couldn't tell unless you looked real closely. Sometimes I get a bit angry, but it's all right. Yes, it's all right because I keep it out of sight. Inside, deep inside. I breastfed till I was 9. Which my doctor says is fine. And he also says I deal with anger better if I wrote about myself in a poem or a letter. My mother was a fucking bitch! Caring lady. She taught me all I know. Although I was a little slow, she never gave up. She never let me slap down. Although she spent a lot of time at the neighbour's house when my dad was out of town. I didn't walk till I was 7. Or talk till I was 10, but neither did Napoleon, according to my fucking doctor, who has certificates in frames to substantiate his dodgy fucking claims. My father left my mother for the love of a poontang another, and I have a bastard brother who I've never really known because my dad moved up to Sydney and he doesn't have a bullshit, you fat cunt. Telephone. In primary school, I had trouble making ashtrays. Friends. An issue which has become somewhat of a trend, the origin of which I cannot pretend does not perplex me, although my fucking doctor says it's cool and that loads of fat pricks. Shut up, I'm not fat! Kids at school have problems with communication, and that a course of medication would be wise, and combined with more honest self-expression could help me with my issues with emotional repression. And at $200 a session, I think I'll take the thieving bastard fucking chap's advice. So, I quite like porn, photography, and books on guns, history. And I'd like to be a politician. Vet. And I feel as I get older, I'm more in control of my violent tendencies. And when I die, cool. Die, I'll have no regrets. And I feel that all this writing is really puffy, exciting, and my fucking doctor would be proud because I feel a lot less angry and I'm saying stuff out loud and I'm letting anger out. Like today in our last session when I taught a lesson because he said I'm not progressing, said I wasn't moving forward. So I said, well, let's see how you move without your fucking legs. And I tied him to his chair and I pulled out my machete and I listened to him beg and then I cut his fucking feet off. And while he lay there bleeding, I used his feet to kick him in the head. Thank you, giggling cunts, very much. I hope that was that helped. That was very helpful. Yeah, I feel a lot better. Yes, thank you. Abby, another man just asked a question. Are you a leader or what? No, thanks. It's funny actually. I sometimes, because there's a bit of language in that piece, and I got a letter recently from a woman when I was performing in Perth saying that she didn't see why I had to use such crass language, and I wrote back sort of explaining that language changes. You know, our whole vernacular is different, and the moral standards change, and that these words are in common usage now. And I cited this. It's a true story. I saw on the front page of the Australian newspaper the word "fuck." Like on the front page of the paper. I mean, things have changed, and all I had to do to get away with it was spell it F***K. It's really weird that a little star could be enough to soothe our fickle outrage, you know. Anyway, because the F***K is so commonly used these days, it actually these days means fuck. More than fuck means fuck. It's almost a counterproductive disguise. It's like a pedophile wearing brown-tinted aviator glasses when he goes to the pool. If anything, it makes him look more like a pedophile. Strangely, and I also pointed this out in my letter, the protection afforded the word fuck by the humble asterisk does not necessarily apply to all words, even seemingly innocuous, perfectly harmless words. Like any word, like take the word finger, for example, perfectly harmless word, but when used in a sentence such as, I want to finger your mum, it could be construed by some censors as deemed offensive. Now, you'd have to say that the offensive word in that sentence is the word finger, used in this case as a verb or a doing word. But you would not get that sentence on the front page of the Australian newspaper by spelling it F***Ger. And that's because it's the context in which the word is used that makes it offensive. In which case, you might be better off spelling the sentence, I want to finger your M***. I guess the reason I brought that up, I guess what I'm saying is, if anyone has been offended so far by anything, if you're the sort of person that finds any of that sort of stuff objectionable, or for that matter, if you're a religious person, might want to pop out for about 5 minutes. This is a song about anal sex and God. It's called 10-Foot Cock and a Few Hundred Virgins. So you're gonna live in paradise with a 10-foot cock and a few hundred virgins. So you're gonna live in paradise with a 10-foot cock and a few hundred virgins. So you're gonna sacrifice your life for a ride on a UFO. And when the Lord comes down in his shimmering chariot of salvation, you're gonna be the first to know. Oh. And so if God was there from the very beginning, he invented men and women, then he also invented wanking, then he said wanking was sinning. So now if I'm feeling randy, I'm not allowed to hand shandy, but having sex with my family, that is just fucking great. It's all there in Ezekiel 8, and just before he opens up his big pearly gate and says that it's a sin to take it up to date, even if it's great, even with your cowboy mate. So you're gonna live in paradise with a 10-foot cock and a few hundred virgins. So you're gonna sacrifice your life for a shot at the greener grass. And when the Lord comes down with his shiny rod of judgment, he's gonna kick my heathen ass. Oh. So if you cover the bodies of your women, everybody is grinning because black is so slim, and though it's not great for swimming, but it gives you an erection with the increased sexual tension. What with the UV protection, that is second to none. You'll find it all in the Quran, just next to the bit that justifies guns and says that it's a sin to take it up the bum, even if it's fun, even with permission from your mum. So you're gonna live in paradise with a 10-foot cock and a few hundred virgins. So you're gonna sacrifice your life for a shot at eternity. And when the Lord comes down and I haven't done my penance, he's gonna disembowel me. Oh, you say that if I stumbled on a watch, I'd assume it had a watchmaker, that a muffin presupposes a baker, so we must agree sooner or later that this proves there's a creator. So if I put my foot in a stinker, you'd assume the existence of a sphincter, thus you don't need to be a great thinker to conclude that God's a bum, which negates the words of Genesis 1, which make him out to be so much fun, until Adam succumbed to temptation, and then his only son got nailed to a gum, or the Middle Eastern equivalent, which suggests that God's omniscience is nullified by his ambivalence, unless it turns out that he's impotent, and if God can't get a boner, I guess that explains the plethora of huge erections in his honor, because we all know a steeple's just a subconscious compensatory manifestation of a huge stiff penis, and still he tells us that it's heinous to stick a penis up your anus, even if you're famous, even if you're good at tennis. So you're gonna live in paradise with the 10-foot cock and a few hundred virgins. So you're gonna sacrifice your life for a ride on a UFO. And when the Lord comes down with his big, stiff, slippery rod of judgment, oh, I'm gonna be the first to go. He's gonna send me down below. He's gonna whip me like a hoe. Do you really think so? I'm gonna be the first to go. Thank you. Sometimes because material like that doesn't necessarily respect entirely some of the idiosyncrasies of a couple of the major monotheistic doctrines, people make the assumption upon listening to such material that I'm not religious myself, which is pretty spot on. But sort of beside the point. I don't want to be divisive, you know. And besides, I think you can be spiritual. I think you can have a deep sense of spirituality without actually adhering to any of the major religions. As it turns out, I'm not at all spiritual. I've just got this real sense of emptiness. But I believe in things, you know. I believe in rocks and gravity, and I have like a relativist morality, which I can manipulate to suit my worldview. So that I can justify group sex for example, whilst abhorring group prayer. Works for me. But you have to admit, really, ironically, I guess, given all the religious violence in the world, one of the things that actually binds us all, that we all have in common across all cultures and indeed all time since the beginning of recorded thought, is this tendency to invoke the supernatural to help us explain those things in our lives which we find difficult to explain using only the evidence at hand, you know. A modern example of this, I saw on telly recently, a show about, it was called, I think it was Miracles in the Womb, or Extreme Wombs, or something, Changing Wombs. It wasn't that. But anyway, it was about multiple births, and a woman had given birth to naturally conceived identical quadruplet girls, which is very rare. And she said, the doctors told me there was a 1 in 64 million chance that this could happen. It's a miracle. But of course, as we know, it's not, because things that have a 1 in 64 million chance of happening happen all the time. To presume that your 1 in 64 million chance thing is a miracle is to significantly underestimate the total number of things that there are. Maths. It's interesting, actually, now that I live overseas, it struck me anew when I came back to Australia this time that here this compulsion towards the supernatural and the mystical seems to manifest itself mostly in Australia in the presence of bumper stickers. You know the ones I'm talking about? They're usually purple, and they generally imply the existence of a benevolent spirit of some sort looking after us all, and especially the people who bothered to put the sticker on their bumper. They say things like the goddess is dancing, and my favourite probably is don't drive faster than your angel can fly. As if of all the possible restrictions an angel might face, speed is the... Unless they're just proposing the possibility of the existence of unfit angels. And probably the one that annoys me most, because it's most common, I think, is, I'm sure you've all seen it, magic happens. Magic happens, they usually sparkle. I don't know what it is about magic happen stickers on cars, but every time I see one, I want to get out my permanent marker and sort of sneak over and write underneath it, so does cot death. Under which a spiritual person with their slightly more ephemeral marker might choose to write something like, yeah, but sometimes the magician has to do bad magic in order to, A, test our faith, or B, for the purpose of a greater good. Under which someone like me, with their permanent marker, might choose to write something along the lines of, fuck off. Thus ending an otherwise perfectly sensible bumper-based philosophical argument. I have a particular religious friend I go head-to-head with and get very boring at dinner parties with on these sort of big questions, and he always sort of seems to think that to be sceptical is to be cynical, and that my view of the world sees no beauty, which I always argue is not the case. I mean, I find the world a really exciting place. There are ideas that are a bit more sciencey, that are just as exciting as the kind of magic-y ones, you know, like the one of the greatest ideas of all time, evolution, the theory of natural selection, you know. Not only is it, how would you say, right... I'm just practicing my timing for my American tour. Pause, right, and duck. Duck. I mean, not only is it good science, but it's also really thrilling, don't you think, this idea that an individual of a species can be born sort of mutated in a good way. And in the moment of that individual's birth, it holds within its genetic code the potential for its entire species to take a huge evolutionary leap forward. It's amazing. And I always think, what would life have been like being one of those individual mutant freaks? You know, what did the other kids think? imagine being the first dude ever to have feet. I reckon that would be really tough. And also, what I wonder is, how did these individuals with their new bits, like, how did they figure out how to use them? Did they just stumble upon their potential purpose one day, just accidentally, you know? Imagine you're a fish, and you're just swimming in the ocean with your school, and you're all just hanging out, swimming, same as always, because you're fish. And suddenly, out of nowhere, Tony... Fucking Tony. Tony just goes, I'm getting out. Yeah, I'm freezing. You're a fish, Tony. Yeah, well, I'm a cold fish. I just want to pop out for a bit, you know, maybe lie on my towel. I'll bring you an ice cream. Yeah, don't bother, Tony, you're a freak. Come on, school, let's go. Let's ostracize him for being different. Yeah, let's ostracize him. Tony's a freak. Let's ostracize him for being different. No, don't ostracize me. I'm just a little bit different. Oh, bugger you then. I'll show you guys. Fuck me. Those are going to come in handy. And imagine what Tony would think, standing there on his brand new feet, on the brink of the beginnings of mankind as we know it. If he could look forward just a few short hundreds of millions of years to see one of his descendants, an Israeli Jew by the name of Jesus, having a nail hammered through his feet. The very feet that Tony provided him with as a punishment for having a sort of schizophrenic discourse with a god who was created by man to explain the existence of feet in the absence of the knowledge of the existence of Tony. I think that would blow his little fishy mind. This religious friend of mine, arguments often end with him telling me that I'm not very open-minded. And because he's my friend and I respect him, I've written him a song. It's called If You Open Your Mind Too Much, Your Brain Will Fall Out. Which I think is brilliant. It's so clever. Unfortunately, I didn't come up with it myself. I read that in a book. So to avoid copyright issues, I've given it a subtitle, which is, Take My Wife! If anyone can show me one example in the history of the world of a single psychic who's been able to prove under reasonable experimental conditions that they are able to read minds. And if anyone can show me one example in the history of the world of a single astrologer who's been able to prove under reasonable experimental conditions that they can predict future human events by interpreting celestial signs. And if anyone can show me one example in the history of the world of a single homeopathic practitioner who's been able to prove under reasonable experimental conditions that solutions made up of infinitely tiny particles of good stuff dissolved repeatedly into relatively huge quantities of water have a consistently higher medicinal value than a similarly administered placebo. And if anyone can show me one example in the history of the world of a single spiritual person who's been able to show either empirically or logically the existence of a higher power with any consciousness or interest in the human race, or ability to punish or reward humans for their moral choices, or that there is any reason other than fear to believe in any version of an afterlife, I will give you my piano, one of my legs, and my wife. I think it's important. I think it's important that even if, you know, one's job, as it is in my case, is to entertain. It's such an honour to have an audience like you watching me for hours and hours on end, and I think sometimes that I should respect that honour, I guess, by trying to do something with a bit of a message in it, so it's not purely entertainment, but that is something that you guys can take away, and in some way, it's a grand aim, but in some way that maybe I could contribute to the betterment of the world, you know. So I've got this song which addresses an environmental issue about which I feel very strongly, and I'd love to perform it for you now in the hope that maybe we can contribute to the resolution of this issue. Hit it. Take your canvas bags when you go to the supermarket. Why use plastic bags when you know the world can't take it? Take your canvas bags when you go to the supermarket, market. Don't you use those plastic ones, no. Don't you know that you'll feel better for it? Take your canvas bags, take your canvas bags. Take your canvas bags to the supermarket. Take your canvas bags, take your canvas bags. Take your canvas bags to the supermarket. Take your canvas bags, take your canvas bags. Take your canvas bags to the supermarket. Take your canvas bags. Take your canvas bags to the supermarket. Break it down. Take your canvas, take your canvas, take your canvas bags to the supermarket. All the ladies in the house, come on and let me hear you say canvas. All the fellas in the house, come on and let me hear you say bags. Yeah. Take your canvas bags, take your canvas bags. Take your canvas bags to the supermarket. Just think about the world and how the world would be fantastic if we could get rid of all the plastic. We just need to get enthusiastic, organise a competition, gymnastic, or a bag-making comp at your school. Fuck it, make it interscholastic. Canvas is for everyone, whether you be rebellious and iconoclastic, or conservative, or ecclesiastic. I don't care if you're loud and bombastic, or quiet, or virtually monastic. Sober, or on the floor spastic, a yoga master, or completely inelastic. I'm not trying to be ironic or sarcastic. Do something drastic. Take your canvas, babe. Take your canvas, babe. Yeah, clap your hands. Yeah, take your canvas. Yeah, take it, clap, yeah. Sing along. If you figured out the words, just sing along. You just gotta keep it going for me.
This is an interval song. Cause we're going to the interval. It's an interval song. Cause it's the interval. We got the interval song.